What's going on, guys? It's Jacob from Topside MMA, and today I'm bringing you my full card breakdown for UFC Vegas 109, Dolidze versus Hernandez. Now, this card is a little tricky. You know, there's a lot of really wide favorites we're going to get into later throughout this video, but this one is a very interesting card, and it's kind of swaying me away from it a little bit in terms of what plays we're going to have this week. But for the full card breakdown, we're just going to go over the fights, give you my initial leans, and yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. First up, we got Cody Brundage versus Eryk McConico. Now, Cody Brundage, we all know about him. Cody Brundage is not the most reliable, a bit of a crash out, has a lot of power, not a lot of durability, all around generally a red flag of a fighter to get behind. But in this matchup, they're giving him Eryk McConico, who really hasn't been able to prove himself in the UFC yet. Now, we've only seen Eryk McConico in one fight against Nursultan Ruzaboyev, and Ruzaboyev is an absolute killer. So, yeah, Eryk didn't look great in that. You know, the first round, he was super timid. He was really standoffish. Like, he didn't want to, or not standoffish, he was more reserved. You know, he didn't really want to engage in a firefight, which it's hard to blame him. You know, it's the short notice UFC step up, UFC debut. It's hard to blame him for being so shy in that fight, you know, because when we saw in the second round, his corner was like, all right, time to get in the fight, you know, like, you got to really go for it. And he goes for it, and he gets punished for it. So I feel really bad for him because he seems decent, you know, like, he seems like, from what I've seen from his tape, you know, like, he has good defensive awareness when he's striking, you know, like, he's not super risky and he's not going for too much. Like, he seems pretty technically sound for the most part, even though we haven't really seen him do well in the UFC level so far. We know that chin could be a potential problem, you know, especially against a guy like Cody Brundage. It's tough to say at this one. I'm going to lead Cody Brundage, but it's so hard to really pick either side here because if either of these guys get knocked out within the first 30 seconds, I wouldn't be surprised. We've just seen a lot more from Cody Brundage to be like, all right, you know, this guy can at least hang. You know, like, we've seen him, he'll dig deep if he needs to. Yeah, he's been caught. Yeah, he's been clipped. Yeah, he's been in some controversy. But we know Cody Brundage, he's going to go out there and go to war. And we just haven't quite seen that from Eryk yet. And when we did see it in that second round of that Nursultan fight, he got clipped really fast. And I think Brundage has damn good power. Maybe, I don't know how it compares to a Nursultan. Maybe, I mean, probably similar. I know Nursultan Ruzaboyev has a ton of finishes on his record. But, you know, Brundage has some damn good knockout power. Brundage is looking better and better in his fights, too. He's looking a little bit more technically sound on the feet. He looked decent in his fight against Mansur Abdul Malik in his last one, too. So, I think he is looking better and better, especially because he kind of mentally is starting to lock in a little bit more. He kind of went through that period of time where he was unsure about his fighting path and his fighting career. And, you know, I think Cody Brundage is on the upward trajectory in terms of his career. You know, like, he's starting to look a little bit more pieced together mentally and physically. Whereas with Eryk McConico, he just hasn't really shown us that yet. So you got to lean Cody Brundage, but just not super confident in him because he hasn't shown sometimes the best fight IQ. The durability is a concern. The cardio could be a concern here. A lot of red flags here, but you got to lean towards Cody Brundage ever so slightly just because he's at least proven himself in the UFC to be able to hang here. So next up, we got Gabriella Fernandez versus Julija Stoliarenko. Now, I like Gabriella Fernandez in this one just because she has more ways to win this fight, and that's how it goes anytime this Julija girl fights anyone. She is just a one-trick pony on the ground. If this girl cannot get the takedown, if she can't go for the submission, she's pretty much out of the fight. And not even that, what's worse than that is this girl pretty much, the only submissions she can land at the UFC level are arm bars. So if she can't get that arm bar going early on, she's pretty much screwed. And it gives a girl like Gabriella Fernandez, who's a good striker, who has power in the hands, I don't think a girl like Julia is going to be able to really hang for very long in this fight. I see it going likely under because we've seen in the past too. I forget who is it when Julia fought. Who did she fight? It was I think it was Chelsea Chandler. Yeah, when she fought Chelsea Chandler, you know, when you could see it in her eyes during that fight. What was it? She got finished in the. Oh, it was the first round. Yeah, it was when she couldn't get the grappling success, and she started to get hit. You could just see it in her eyes when she was like mentally defeated and physically withering away. You could quite literally see it. Same with her knockout loss against Luana Carolina too. You could see it in her eyes where she's just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. And it comes from getting hit by someone who has heavy hands, like Joselyne Chandler has heavy hands. Same with Gabriella Fernandes. I think she hits even harder. Gabriella Fernandes is a damn good striker who's been able to hang. You know, she beat Kong Wang, which is a huge underdog. I forget what line she was on that, like a plus 600 or something. Absolutely insane. But we know she can hang on the feet, and she has decent enough takedown defense to where it's not going to be a problem. And the thing with a girl like Julija too is she doesn't even have the wrestling accolades. She doesn't have that offensive wrestling to take it to the ground if she wants to. She's more of a BJJ one-trick pony in the sense of she's only really dangerous even if she's on her back, she can be dangerous on the ground, but it's not like she has to be on top. But it's the thing is, like, she has to be on the ground going for these submissions to really be dangerous. And I think a girl like Gabriella Fernandes, she should be able to keep the distance. She should be able to strike, land heavy shots. You're going to see Julija start to wilt throughout this fight. I don't think she's going to be able to land some random takedown against Gabriella, who she's had decent takedown defense. So Gabriella Fernandes should be able to have her way with this. I expect a KO. I don't see this going very long just because I think Julija will start to wilt if she can't have her way on the ground, if she can't take it to the ground, and this is just on the feet the whole time. It's hard to see it going 15. You know, Julija could try and initiate a clinch, I guess. Try and drag this on however many times she can, but this just seems like I'm pretty confident in Gabriella Fernandes just because Julija, yeah, she has that decent BJJ game, but she just doesn't have the wrestling to be able to dominate to get it there. So for that reason, you got to lean Gabriella Fernandes. This line is extremely wide though. But at the same time, I get why it is. You know, Julija really is a submission or bust. So it's easy to fade her in this fight. So, but yeah, we'll go with Gabriella Fernandes in this one. Next up, we got Uros versus Gilbert Urbina. Now, this is like this entire card is basically filled of these fights where someone should win the fight, but there's like the what if, like, well, what if? Like maybe they have a hole in their game, or maybe there's a red flag, maybe there's a concern. That's pretty much how it is for all of these, or a lot of these fights. This is one of them too. Now, Uros should be the better, more technical striker with the heavier hands who can inflict more damage, and he's going against Gilbert Urbina, who has chin problems. And he hasn't really had that much success in the UFC at all. So you think about it, you're like, all right, Uros should be a slight favorite because we just saw Uros get completely knocked out cold in his last fight as a medium favorite. I think he was like a minus 200. So now we're putting him against Gilbert Urbina, who, yeah, he has his own chin problems, but the line on this is insane. I think Uros is like a minus 400 or something, absolutely ridiculous. Let me see what this is. Let me see. He is minus 450 right now. Oh my goodness. So I don't know how anyone can have confidence taking Uros as a minus 450 when we just saw him get knocked out cold. Or not like completely out cold, but he got knocked out bad in that first round. It was really damn quick too. It was super quick. And now he's a minus 450 favorite. And yeah, Gilbert is not that good. He hasn't shown a lot of growth in the UFC, and he hasn't really shown the potential. He's really just been beaten on by guys. But at the same time, minus 450, you're putting that on a guy who just got starched. I don't know. You got to pick Uros because he's definitely the more talented, technically like sound striker. You know, you got to pick him here. And he's going to have the height advantage. Reach disadvantage though, I didn't know it was that big of a difference. So yeah, I mean that gives me even less confidence. Like this is just, you can't put someone as a minus 450 in a confident line when you just saw him get knocked out badly in his last fight. So this is one. This seems like a red flag to me. I'm not wanting to really do a whole lot with this. The pick will be Uros just because of the technical ability. This fight likely goes under. This kind of feels like a Zach Reese versus Dusko Todorovic. where it's like everything points towards it going to finish inside the distance, and somehow no one knows how the hell it happens, but it goes to a decision. Like, especially Uros, like I think nearly all, if not every single fight or every single win is like inside the distance. Like his stats are crazy. This guy's a finisher. Neither of these guys are extremely durable, so this likely finishes early into the fight. I don't see it going long, but I wouldn't be completely surprised depending on who gets finished. But Uros should be the one knocking out Gilbert, but I just say that the fair warning. With the fair warning, there is some definite concern or just some hesitation you should have with this one. But next up, we got Joselyne Edwards versus Priscila Cachoeira. Now, this is the same type of thing as the last fight. There's a clear way that someone should win, but there's that uncertainty of, there's the red flag that could cause some problems. This is the same thing. Joselyne Edwards versus Priscila Cachoeira. Joselyne Edwards should be able to land takedowns and control this fight on the ground. Because we know Priscila has bad takedown defense, and if she's controlled on the ground, people take her down, she's like a fish out of water. Anyone who's a decent women's UFC fighter can probably beat her just because her takedown defense and her ground game is so poor. And I feel bad for her because I want to see Priscila win because I know she has a rough background and backstory, and you want to see her do well, but I just don't know how well she's going to do against a girl like Joselyne Edwards, who really is looking better and better with every fight. She is training with a good team. She has good people in her corner. She's really taking her career seriously. So it worries me. It worries me for Priscila because it just seems like it's so clear. The game plan should be clear as day for Joselyne to just work the clinch, shoot the takedowns, take her to the ground, and dominate her. You know what I mean? Like, it's clear as day, but I don't know if Joselyne Edwards is going to do that. I would assume that she would. I don't know why she would want to stand and bang and have that risk, because Priscila really has no other chance if it's not on the feet. So you have to assume that Joselyne Edwards does take it down, and if she does take it down to the ground, what's her line? She's minus 350 now. She probably will look that if she plays this game plan, plays it smart, and sticks to that game plan of just trying to take it to the ground and control her there. But, Priscila has that knockout power. If any fight to have a red flag come up, I'd say this is probably less likely, but at the same time, this is likely to go the distance. Both of these girls are tough. Both of these girls are durable. If anyone's getting the finish, it's probably Joselyne getting the submission win. But I likely see this fight going over. And if you're leaving it to the judges at the apex where they value damage so much, and Joselyne, the way for her to win is going for takedowns and kind of wet blanketing her way to a decision win, if she can't get that submission, that minus 350 might look a whole lot more slim than that. So the pick is still going to be Joselyne, but a little bit of hesitation with this one. Now, next up, we got Elijah Smith versus Toshiomi Kazama. This is, I'm going to keep saying this is kind of a similar one. I think Elijah Smith is the better fighter. He has more talent. He has a hell of a lot more potential. He has a hell of a lot more bright of a future for him in the UFC. But in the past, there have been issues with his cardio. Now, I think he's working on that. He's looking better with the cardio. His loss that he had, his one loss was where he kind of started to gas out later on in the fight and he got clipped. The thing is, if he gasses against Kazama really is a BJJ one-trick sub or bust type of guy. His hands are bad. His chin is bad. He should get starched here. I'm starting to kind of get over sus about this and well, what could happen? You know what I mean? Kind of like where you get in your own head. In theory, Elijah Smith should go in here, knock out Kazama in the first round, highlight reel to boost a prospect. This fight makes sense why it was made, and on paper, everything points towards Elijah Smith. Because, especially too, with Elijah Smith, we don't really have to worry about Kazama taking him to the ground. That's why I'm a lot more confident in Elijah Smith, because it's not like a Peyton Talbot where his striking looks great, but we haven't seen his wrestling tested, and he didn't have that wrestling ability to be able to hang with a guy like Ronnie Barcelos, and he paid the price for it. Elijah Smith has good wrestling. We've seen him. His wrestling is tested. He's used it in previous fights. We know it can hang. And we know that Kazama is a BJJ one trick or bust, sub or bust. So he's not going to have that offensive wrestling to be able to take a guy like Elijah Smith down and neutralize him. We saw that in his last fight, Kazama's fight against, what's his name? Gregorio. Charlampolo, Gregorio, whatever the hell his name was. We saw immediately when that fight started, he shot and went straight for the takedown, went straight to the wrestling, which was really smart on his behalf because that was his way to win the fight. Obviously, he did win it after Gregorio gassed out. So that was my only concern with this is we have seen Elijah Smith start to slow down in certain fights, but I assume he's working on that. He's super young, super fresh. That's got to be something he's very aware of and he's working on. And for a fight like this really just feels like a highlight reel KO to build up a young prospect. Elijah Smith doesn't have dynamite hands, but Kazama's chin is just dust. He's been cracked. He's been wobbled. Guys mess him up. So I think Elijah Smith is going to very likely run right through him. First round knockout would be my prediction for this. But Elijah Smith is not very tested in the UFC. He had that good win against Vince Morales, which was a good win, but you can't have some super high confidence. And the only reason he's this big of a favorite is purely because of his opponent, not necessarily his skill set. So it's hard to really fully get in on that. What's he at? Minus 800. Absolutely insane, but it makes sense when you really look at this one. So the pick has to be Elijah Smith. Round 1 knockout is very likely the most likely outcome, I guess, here. But there is that little reserve for such a huge price tag, for such small experience, especially within the UFC. I do have a bit of a concern, but you got to pick Elijah Smith. Now, next up, we got Julius Walker versus Rafael Cerqueira. This is the same thing. I know I keep saying this, but oh my goodness, this is the same thing. We got Julius Walker, who had one fight in the UFC against Alonzo Menafield. He showed up on short notice, lost a split decision. That looked good. But now he's fighting Rafael Cerqueira, who does have a good record. 11-2, he had a bunch of knockouts. I know the promotion that he fought in was something weird where there's not a whole lot on him, and it's not a very popular fight organization, and he decided to stick with them because they gave him a title run early on. Very weird situation with Rafael Cerqueira's record, to where that's not your average 11-2. It's a lot worse. Oh, it's even better. No, it's very suspicious. So you can't really hold him by his record, because in the UFC too, we've seen when he has been in these fights against Ibo Aslan and Modestas Bukauskas, he has gotten starched in the round 1 by knockout. So you can't have any faith in Cerqueira that he is able to hang with UFC level competition. We just saw Ibo Aslan look like shit in his last fight, and we've seen Modestas look very beatable in his own fights too, with his own chin problems he's had and injuries he's faced. He's looking better and better. He's definitely on a good run, and I like him. I think he's a cool dude, but he's not unbeatable. So for him to just run right through Cerqueira is a bit of a, not even a bit, it's a reason to suss Rafael Cerqueira in this one. And I like Julius Walker. I've actually watched a couple videos on him recently and kind of his mindset, and he talked about that Alonzo Menafield fight where he was saying, yeah, I gassed out. That's something I need to work on, and I've been taking my cardio very seriously because of that fight. And I know he took that fight on short notice too, so you can't really blame him that much. And I'm pretty sure he took that on short notice. Pretty sure, but I know he, at least what I do know for sure is the interviews I saw of him, he was talking about where his cardio in that fight obviously ultimately probably cost him the win, and he's talking about it, that he's working on it so much. So I trust his skill set enough. He has good grappling, his hands are decent, and I think he should be able to beat a chinny Rafael Cerqueira. We've seen Rafael get clipped by pretty much everything thrown his way. When shots come his way, he starts to like deflect, like looks like he just like has his bad body reactions to where it seems like he doesn't. I mean, no one likes getting hit, but at the same time, you're a UFC fighter. You shouldn't be like shying away from hits. And everything I've seen from Rafael Cerqueira in the UFC level is just, it's hard to say anything good at all. I can't say a single good thing other than he's brave for stepping in the ring in the UFC. It's more than most people have done. But other than that, that's kind of where you draw the line. Whereas at least with Julius Walker, you know, he went to a split decision with Alonzo Menafield in his UFC debut. I'm not the highest on Alonzo Menafield, but he's a ranked UFC fighter, so congrats to Julius Walker for that. You know, I mean, you got to give him his props. So for that reason, it makes sense why he's a big favorite. Now, do I think it's worth the minus 700 that he's at? Absolutely not. But at the same time, it makes sense why he's a big favorite. I don't know. This is going to be an interesting week because I could easily see some of these lines starting to tighten. Because I could see a bunch of people thinking, all right, both of these guys are super untested light heavyweights. Anyone can get clipped at light heavyweight. So for such small or limited experience between both of these guys, and they're really not all that proven, one being a minus 700 is kind of crazy. I do like Julius Walker, though. I think he has a good future in the UFC. I'm a fan of his. I like him as a person. He seems like a cool dude. And the age thing, too, is interesting, too, because you got Julius Walker, who is 26, where Rafael is 35. So you got to figure at least Julius Walker is going to be looking better and better with every single fight that he has. Whereas Rafael Cerqueira, it's like, are they just keeping this dude just to have him be a punching bag, highlight reel, knockout, showcase win for new prospects? Like, oh, shit. Oh. Sorry, I had something lag there. But anyway, yeah, it's like, what are they really keeping him around for? You know, two first round knockout losses in a row for Cerqueira, and they're throwing him against the upcoming prospect. It seems like the UFC knows exactly what they're doing, so it's hard to... I don't want to overthink this one. You know, I kind of just want to accept this for what it seems to be, not put too much thought into it, and just call it a day. So, next up, we got Hernandez versus Christian Leroy Duncan. This is like the 5th time I've said this, but this is like the same type of thing here. You know, Christian Leroy Duncan... He's younger, he's faster, he's going to be more technical, better cardio, better durability. Every single thing you could ever imagine is pointing towards Christian Leroy Duncan in this fight. He should win. He should knock Hernandez out. Hernandez is getting old. He's damaged. He has been through wars. He's chinny now. His durability has really gone down. He's been clipped in so many recent fights. Christian Leroy Duncan should knock out Hernandez in under 2 rounds. That's what he should do. But the thing with Christian Leroy Duncan is that after that G-Rod fight that he had, it just seemed like, and I know I talked about this last week too, when Pulev was fighting. I got burned by Christian Leroy Duncan when he fought Pulev because I figured, all right, Christian Leroy Duncan is miles ahead of Pulev. Pulev is not good. I don't think he's that good. You know, like his striking is not great. He can be dominated. Christian Leroy Duncan goes in there and dominates on the feet. But then for whatever reason, he says, screw it. Let me just clinch and hug against the cage the whole time. I took Christian Leroy Duncan. I had a bet on him by knockout because I figured, all right, he's going to style on this dude. He's going to knock him out. He's going to get him out of there. You know, within 3 rounds, this will be walk in the park for CLD. And CLD had every single opportunity to knock him out. Even in the 3rd round, he was beating up on him. He was wailing on him. And he just like completely took his foot off the gas pedal. He was just like, it felt like that CLD felt bad for Pulev. He's like, oh, it felt like he was like, oh, I don't want to knock him out. You know, like he almost felt like I'm so much better than this dude. It's like, it was like a mercy. Like, all right, I'm not going to knock him out. He's already been through enough. Because it was like I think he lost like a 30-26. One round was like a 10-8. So it's like he got his ass kicked, but I don't like to see that. I wish Christian Leroy Duncan would have went out there and starched him. I wish he would have gone out there and gone for the finish. And I know you hear Michael Bisping say it so many damn times it makes you want to blow your brains out. But it's like, why aren't these guys going out there for a finish? Why isn't he going for a finish? You need to be going for the finish. That stuff drives me insane. But that was like CLD. That was one of the few times where that has really been like, oh my God, why is this dude not going for the finish? Long story short, what the whole point of that is CLD doesn't, one, really have that fighter, like, killer instinct. And especially a guy like Eryk Anders, at least he's not going to give up. He's going to be a dog in there. I could see him making it closer than it should be. I hope CLD comes in here coming off of that Pulev fight and being like, all right, maybe I should lock in. Maybe let me go for a fight of the night bonus. Let me try and get that 50K. Maybe I care about that money, And if he does, he probably looks like a minus 600 or what is he? Yeah, he probably looks like the minus 600 favorite that he is. But if he's trying to wrestle and hug against or clinch and hug against the cage and be in a clinch the whole damn time, he's going to look a hell of a lot less, like these odds are going to look a hell of a lot tighter than a minus 600 favorite for CLD. So every single thing on paper points to CLD. He should win this fight. He should get a knockout win or a decision win. Either way, it should not be close. But it's hard to have a ton of faith in CLD after his last performance. Anyway, moving on. We got Miles Johns versus Gene Matsumoto. Now, both of these guys have kind of let me down in the past, just in terms of like their performances. Miles Johns hasn't looked great. I know at 15-3 is a really good record, but it's like he's just I don't know. It's something about him. He's just like certain fights, he just kind of gets in like a crash out mode, little like marauder mode, and I don't know. It's just he's not the type of fighter that I really want to get behind, but he's durable and he's tough and he won't give up. So like I respect him. Like it's not that. It's just in the sense of like skill wise, I don't know just how good Miles Johns is. And at the same time, you got Gene Matsumoto where, yes, he's had his own struggles as well, like Miles Johns has. But it's like, all right, like Gene Matsumoto, he lost recently to Rob Font. Rob Font stopped Kyler Phillips. He cut that win down. Like he got that win from him. He got the win from Gene Matsumoto. I guess old man Rob Font is still kicking. Like you got to put a little bit more respect on that. And I guess with Gene in that fight too, he was at such a height and reach disadvantage where like, all right, that fight probably would have been a harder fight for him than someone like Miles Johns in theory. But I don't know. It's hard to have a ton of confidence. The thing with Gene is at only 25 years old, he is going to keep looking better and better and better. But at the same time, you have Miles Johns, who's now he's 31 years old. This man's in his physical prime. So you got a grown man in his prime with more experience, at least in the UFC, versus you got Gene Matsumoto where he's a younger kid, but his potential is probably higher, just as well as he's doing in the UFC right now. There is an interesting stat, too, that kind of made me think about this fight. Can you guys see this? No, I got it. Got to pull up in my notes. But fighters under 25 years old in the UFC, they are in the highest winning percentage of greater than 65% of their fights they win for fighters under the age of 25 years old. And Gene Matsumoto recently, what's his birthday? We'll show it on here. He just turned, or he is 25 years old, but I think it's pretty fresh. Okay, no, never mind. So he's about a year off of 29, about to be, or 26. So, but anyway, it's like the younger fighters, like that stat kind of stuck out to me a little bit because it's like, this kid has had so much success at a young age, and I think that stat is probably biased by these young kids that just start doing super well in the UFC, and they're like young prodigies, like the John Joneses of the world. Like, I don't think Gene Matsumoto is that good, but at the same time, we see a kid doing very well at a young age. You got to give him a little bit more, I don't want to say respect or credibility, but just like, you got to put some respect on that, or I don't know. You just got to take that into consideration. This kid's doing this well at such a young age. It probably means his trajectory is going to be a lot higher, and his ceiling is going to be a lot higher. So it's hard to write Gene Matsumoto off after a Rob Font loss, after Rob Font has proven to be kind of like the old man C-Rod prospect killer. So, I'm going to lean Gene Matsumoto in this fight ever so slightly, because I think he does have a bit of a higher ceiling. I do like that he has a reach advantage in this fight. This is going to be a close one, though. I don't like these odds. I don't even know if it's playable at this point. I don't know. I'll do a little bit more research on this, deep dive a little bit further. I don't know if I'll necessarily pick flip, but in terms of like if there's any lines that stick out to me, but I'll go with Gene Matsumoto for now. But this is going to be a close one. I think it's going to be a lot closer than the minus 320 on Gene Matsumoto line implies. But anyway, next up we got Andre Fili versus Christian Rodriguez. Now, a little bit biased because I really like Andre Fili, and on the other hand, C-Rod has cost me many times in the past, so I respect him as a fighter. I've got nothing against him, but he's burned me before. I do not like betting against C-Rod, so he's cost me before because he's good. C-Rod is one of those dudes where he's one of the dudes where like he just has to like work really hard. You could tell he works his ass off. He's one of those guys where he has no weaknesses. Yeah, he gets beat by dudes who can just be the overall better fighter, like we saw against Mel Costa. Like where that he really was he just outperformed C-Rod in that fight. But you got to respect them both. But anyone who has a hole in their game, C-Rod will expose them, and I like C-Rod, because he's a tough ass dude. He sticks to what he's good at. Like he beats dudes down who have any weakness, especially cardio. I respect him for that cardio, especially. Like this man's a tank. He's a tank. His wins when he's the prospect killer. It's like he backs it up. It's like guys who come in, they try to come out aggressive too early on. They tire out. Man, C-Rod is not the type of guy you want to be in the third round when you're gassed, against. Like that's not the type of guy you want to be fighting against when you're gassed late on in a fight. And it's not, I'm not saying that Andre Fili will be like that, but it's just, Fili's been through some wars. Fili's getting older. What is he? 35 years old now. I know he just had a kid. It's just hard to say where his priorities are, because it's like, not that the skill is gone, because it's obviously still there. He's a very, very talented fighter who has the experience edge. He has been in the cage with great competition against killers, and Andre Fili is awesome, and he's been around for so long that he is I don't know, he's just probably right at the point where it's hard to say we're going to see him do better. It's like at this point in his time, the wars he's been through, the damage he's dealt, like the Dan Ige knockout loss within the last couple of years. I love Andre Fili. I wish he could win this fight. I just don't really see it happening. It's just like, I feel like all it takes is for one mistake and C-Rod's going to win this fight. Whether it's knockout, submission, win the round, and then it's 1-1 and C-Rod gets a little moment of greatness, a little shine where he like steals the third round, like I just feel like I don't see C-Rod losing this fight. Fili has been through so much damage, and even when he's not taking a ton of damage, the fight that really kind of made me be like, is when he lost to Cub Swanson. Or he won that fight, he lost that fight. I don't care what the record says. I think he lost that fight, and I don't think that was a good look. Yeah, Cub Swanson is a damn beast, but it was 40-year-old Cub Swanson. I think C-Rod would clearly win that fight. Andre Fili did not clearly win that fight. And I think C-Rod is going to be a lot bigger of a problem than that. So I don't know, because Andre Fili is the probably the more technical, better striker. If he can keep this from range, if this was a damn kickboxing match, I think Fili would win. But it's just the chin on him, the durability is a big, big red flag. C-Rod is extremely durable. And I just feel like all it takes is one slip up for Fili, and he's going to get put out, either knocked out or subbed. Anything can happen with him. And now he's getting older. He knows there's no shot he's getting the belt. And it's kind of like he has the money. Where is his head at? You know, he just had a kid. His sole focus is now, it's no longer in the UFC. It's not on the belts. It's not being the greatest. It just kind of feels like it's going through the motions almost. Where C-Rod, you know, he's young, 27 years old. He's getting better and better. Yeah, he should probably be down a weight class, but anyway, you know, he still has a lot of really high potential. Got to go C-Rod in this, as much as it pains me to say. I like both of these guys. They're both cool, but I like Fili a lot. I wish he would win. Do I think he does? No, I don't want to be biased in this, so the pick will be Christian Rodriguez. Not super confident. I feel like the line is honestly pretty fair. -200 for C-Rod makes sense. Fili definitely could win this if he keeps it from distance. I just don't know if he's going to be able to. So pick will be C-Rod in this one. Now, next up, we got Iasmin Lucindo versus Angela Hill. Now, I think these odds are even maybe a tad wide. I know I talked about the statistic for fighters being younger than 25 with a greater than 65% win rate. Lucindo is 23 years old. I think on paper it should stay true here. But the thing that I don't love about Lucindo is that she doesn't have the killer instinct where she's like really like dogging it out, like going to war. She just doesn't have that. It's hard to describe, but she just doesn't seem to have that. And it gets a girl like Angela Hill. Angela Hill is scrappy, man. She will not give up. You can't kill her. You just have to hope that you can outland her or take her down or control her. You got to outwork Angela Hill. You're not just going to knock her out in the first round or submit her early. No, she's going to make it a war. And I just don't know if Lucindo is quite ready to do that, you know. If this was a couple years ago, I would pick Angela Hill. But it's just the only thing that's holding me back is that Angela Hill is 40 years old. And I feel like Angela Hill is like almost like the female Jared Cannonier in the sense of like, she gets older and he gets older, but like they keep looking great. You know, it's like they don't really show a whole lot of signs of, it's not like they have some fall off where like, oh, after every fight, ooh, he's looking worse and worse and worse. Like, no, like they're still continuing to make very competitive fights at the highest level in the world, which is so impressive. So this is a tough one. Yeah, I kind of want to pick Angela Hill purely because I just don't know if Lucindo I don't think she's going to be able to outwork Angela Hill. If you look at their striking volume, Lucindo's at 2.946 strikes per minute, and Angela Hill's at 5.47. So not quite double, but almost, just about. And Angela Hill, I think her takedown defense could probably be enough in this to keep it up. You know, that's really what this is going to come down to, if Lucindo can land those takedowns or not. But in Vegas, smaller cage, I know that's probably not going to help a person who wants to strike from distance all that much, but if they're going to really focus on damage in terms of the judges, it could favor Angela Hill, you know what I mean? I don't see Lucinda really landing a ton of damage on the feet. And I know Angela Hill doesn't really have that much power, so I'm not expecting her to land some haymakers, but you know, she's kind of like she wants to land a ton of volumes. You know, it's like little pitter-patter, but it adds up over time. She gets little combinations going. This is a tough one. The line is maybe a tad wide, but I think it's decently. It's not too far off, but I think there's decent value on Angela Hill this week. Do we get there? I don't know. We'll have to wait until later this week when I figure those lines out. But I'm probably going to end up pick flipping on this. I might go back and forth. I'll say for now, I'll go Angela Hill for now. I might pick flip though, just because the age difference is so insane. Like, oh my goodness, almost doubled. I can't remember the last time that's been a 17-year age gap. The stats on that have got to be insane. You know what? I can't in good conscience pick someone who's 17 years older than their opponent. But if you were in a women's fight, Angela Hill would not be the worst option to take here. I'll go Lucindo. I'll go Lucindo for now. This is a tough one, though. I may or may not pick flip on this one. But for now, screw it. We'll go Lucindo. All right. Next up, Steve Ursek versus Odi Osbourne. Now, because I don't want to go super long with this video. We're at 40. All right. Now, this is one of those fights where this is like probably the 8th time I've said this tonight. There's a clear path, but there are red flags. The clear path in this fight, I don't even want to talk about this fight for that long. Steve Ursek, he's a good grappler, a well-renowned, accomplished, respected grappler. The wrestling, he's a good wrestler who can take it to the ground. Odi Osbourne struggles on the ground. He's been submitted by Asu Amabayev, and who's the other guy who submitted him? I'm blanking. That's going to bother me. I'm blanking. Why can I not remember this? It was Asu. And yeah, Rafael Filio. Yes, those two. Yeah. And to be fair, those guys are both good grapplers. Filho is probably the better submission artist than Asu Amabayev, because Asu is more of more wrestle dominant as opposed to like some BJJ sober bust type of fighter. Not that Filho is like that, but anyway, if Odi Osbourne has grappling problems, Steve Ursek can definitely be the man to exploit that. He has the wrestling background to be able to dominate this fight in the wrestling, especially because Odi Osbourne is stepping up on short notice. So the later in this fight goes, if this gets to the 3rd round, Odi Osbourne's probably screwed. You know what I mean? If it gets that late, since he's stepping up on short notice. But we've seen Steve get knocked out cold by Cachoeira France. Odi Osbourne is going to be the lengthier striker with more power. What does he have? A 5-inch reach advantage? If Odi Osbourne comes out in this first round, it crashes out like crazy, throwing haymakers, and knocks Steve Ursek out in under a minute, I would not say I'm surprised. I would be like, all right, can't see I didn't see that one happening. But more often than not, I don't think that's the case. Realistically, hopefully Steve Ursek realizes, all right, I'm on a skid. Let me lock in real quick, secure a dub, and then I can go throw haymakers with Cachoeira France if I want to. But let me lock in real quick. That's what Steve Ursek should be. That's what should be going through his brain. Hopefully it is. And if it is does he look like a -600 favorite? I can't even say that with a straight face. Probably not, but maybe if he just sticks to a wrestling game plan and just goes straight for the wrestling and straight for the grappling, yeah, he probably does look like a -400, -500. Because Odi Osbourne, that's his weakness. It's like there's a clear path. Is Steve Ursek going to do that? He's proven in recent fights that he's saying, screw that. I don't want to wrestle. I just want to stand and bang. So you can't really trust Steve Ursek, and we know his chin has been cracked before, so you can't really have a ton of faith in Steve Ursek. If you're taking him this week, you're trusting in him to have the IQ and the game plan locked in. All right, let me take the path of least resistance. Let me just get this dub. That's what you're going with. Do I think he does it? I think he does it more often than he doesn't. I think he should do it. But there's definitely a bit of a concern there. So, last but not least, we got Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. Now, Roman Dolidze, he's a marauder, man. He is not an easy opponent, and these odds are a bit wide considering how dangerous Roman Dolidze can be, man. He hurts dudes. He is dangerous. He's going to go in there and scrap. We've seen Anthony Hernandez hurt before. And I feel like there's so much hype on Anthony Hernandez, and I get it. He's like a cardio beast. But I think people are underestimating Roman Dolidze, man. He's dangerous. He means business. And I know he's 37, so he's getting older. But, at middleweight, he can still hang at 37. I don't think he's done. He's well-rounded. I know he has the grappling background, but his striking has gotten better over time. I mean, Hernandez, that grappling is his best strength, so it's not like he's some kickboxing world champion or something either. So I think this fight's going to be decently close. The only thing is, though, which I get why the line is so damn wide, is because it's a 5-round fight. Anthony Hernandez, his cardio is absolutely insane. If this goes to the championship rounds, 4 and 5, you almost have to assume he's getting those 2 rounds on the scorecards. You almost have to assume that, because he's going to be pushing through those later rounds. So if you're picking Dolidze, you're probably thinking he's going to get the finish, and it's probably going to be within the first 3 rounds, or he dominates in the first 3 rounds. I could easily see Dolidze coming out hot, dominating the first and second round, and Anthony Hernandez squeaking through with the last 3 rounds, and he wins a decision on the scorecards. I could totally see that. I could very, very easily see that. I think this one it makes sense why Hernandez is the favorite. He should win this fight. He has a huge win streak going on right now that no one else is matching that. So, except who, DDP or, yeah, but it makes sense why he's the favorite. But I wouldn't sleep on Dolidze, man. He's a marauder. That dude, he can make it dirty. And we've seen Hernandez finished before, so it's not like he's invincible. So if someone was to hurt him and get him out of there, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Dolidze. Because, Dolidze has the grappling experience too. He's very well respected, a very highly accomplished grappler. So this one, it's going to be a very fun fight, though. I'm really excited for this one. The pick has got to be Anthony Hernandez, 31 years old, physical prime right now. He's looking insane. Dolidze is getting a little bit older, so he's going to start slowing down a little bit in terms of the speed and output. So, yeah, I'll lean Hernandez. Makes sense. He should win this fight. I get why these odds are where they're at currently. But I think it's probably going to be a better spot to take probably after the first or second round. I don't know about playing him before the fight, because I think if anyone's coming out hot and is going to look good really early on, it's probably Dolidze. I think he probably will have the better start, because we know Anthony Hernandez starts to ramp up later fights go on. Kind of like the McGee versus Jan. I could see the same type of thing happening here. Dolidze looking good, but Hernandez starting to take over as the fight progresses. So, but anyway, I'll talk about that more in later videos. So anyway, guys, that does it. Oh yeah, and I'll pick Hernandez will be the pick for this one. So I was going to say, I don't think that'll really change. I'm still going to go with Hernandez. I'm not pick flipping on this one, but anyway, guys, that does it for the UFC Vegas 109 breakdown. Dolidze versus Hernandez. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure y'all stick around for other videos I got coming later this week. And if you guys liked it, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. It helps a ton for the channel. Thank you guys so much for all the love on the recent videos. It's been absolutely insane. I appreciate all the support, all the comments, all that. It means a ton. So anyway, guys, until I see you guys in the next one, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'll see y'all soon. So peace.